Good morning, all. Today, let us discuss about the software project management, and this subject totally deals with the project related things like how you are going to develop a project. In order to develop the project, what are the requirements that you are going to take, and what are the types of designs that you are going to take, and how we are going to implement these designs with respect to the requirements. And here we have different kinds of approaches for developing the project. And among that, we have few things like the fundamental methodologies. Okay. In this, let us discuss about the agile versus waterfall model. Okay. In agile approach, what it happens is it is an iterative process where it is being flexible for adopting and leading the higher success rate, developing the projects. And it is an framework where we used to use different kinds of frameworks for developing the projects. And coming to this waterfall model, it is a linear approach, means where we are going to follow the step-by-step sequence, and it is going to use a sequential method for developing the project. And it is an approach where it looks the project to be stable, and it tells us what are the requirements that are going to take, and it clearly explains okay, the types of requirements that you are going to take, and it defines the requirements, how it is being used, and it also tells us how we are going to take the requirements, and we are going to start with the project. Okay. And next, if you look at the strategic planning and estimation, in the strategic planning and estimation, it tells us the scope definition. Means like if you're going to develop a project, it should state as how the project should be. Means it should define the clear understanding of the project, and we should know the measurements, that is the boundaries of the project that you're going to develop. And it also should explain the well-defined objectives of the project. Means the objectives in the sense how we are going to develop the project and how it leads to make a successful project. And next, it also tells us the resource allocations. Means it tells us how effectively we are going to use the resources. Depending upon the requirements that we have, we should state that how these requirements are fully used and how the resources has been allocated for developing the project. And it also tells us the estimation techniques, like what are the types of things that you're going to use, what are kind of designs that you're going to take, if you're going to take a different kinds of designs, how it is being estimated. And it also deals with the accurate estimation and the budget concerns. Means if you're going to develop a project, there itself we need to look up the budget that we are going to take, and depending upon the budget we are going to develop the projects. And it also tells us the risk managements, like while developing a project we might be having different kinds of risks in terms of the requirements that we are going to take and the designs that we are going to take, and we are going to implement these requirements depending upon the designs. Okay. And while we are going to take the designs or the requirements, sometimes the requirements may not be suit for the designs that you're going to take. In such cases, we need to modify the requirements as per the designs or as per the models that we're going to take. There itself, you're going to identify the assess and mitigation of the risk proactively, and we need to reduce the budget depending upon the requirements that you're going to take. And here it tells us the efficient execution and monitoring, like we need to have the execution of the project in such a way that the project should not be failed, and we need to develop a project in such a way that the project should be fulfilled. And while we are going to develop the project, there should be a monitoring of the project, like the requirements. If you're going to take an X requirement, we need to monitor how this requirement is being utilized in our project, in what areas we are going to utilize this, and we need to monitor whether the requirement is fulfilling the design or not. And while developing the project, we need to think of two things, like the communication and the stakeholder engagement. The communication and stakeholder engagement in the sense like we need to have an efficient communication, means we need to know the clear understanding of the project. If there is no clear understanding of the project, then it leads to failure of the project. So that we should have a clear communication and we should have a clear understanding of the project, which leads to have the success rate of the project. Like, for suppose, if you're having an effective communication, means which leads to improve this project success, where we can have a clear understanding of the requirements and where we can take a clear view that what are the requirements that has been used and how the requirement should be used, where we can have a communication to overcome all these things by having some implementation of the requirements. And if suppose in the same way, while we're having some communication, we need to involve the stakeholders from where we can get the inputs from the stakeholders for developing the projects. Why? Because as per this stakeholder perspective, we are going to develop the projects. Okay. If you're going to involve the stakeholders in this, what it leads is we might be getting some suggestions from the stakeholders. Like they used to tell us how the project should be, and they used to tell us how the project it should look like and how it should be useful for them. Okay. So that we should have a effective communication for developing the projects. And next one is we are going to involve the stakeholder mapping, like identifying the manager expectations, understanding the requirements of the stakeholders. And we need to develop the project in such a way that where the stakeholder gives us the requirements and we need to develop the project depending upon the stakeholder requirements. And if you're going to develop the project depending upon the stakeholder requirements, it may not lead to software failure. And we used to have regular reporting, like what are the updates that you're going to do day by day, and what are the things that you're going to perform. We need to have a clear report of the things which may not lead to the failure of the project. Okay, these are what the things that we are going to have in your communication and stakeholder. Next one, we need to look of the quality assurance and testing excellence. Like quality assurance in the sense, whatever the project that you're going to develop, we need to look of how we are going to develop the project. Means we need to think of the quality assurance, like how this project is going to fulfill the stakeholders. Okay, like we have some comprehensive testings. Like we used to perform some unit testing where we used to develop the code that has been developed by ourselves. That is what called as an conduct unit. And we used to develop the code in smaller pieces. And where we are going to perform the unit testing on that. Once the unit testing is completed, we are going to perform with the integration of the system, where we used to perform some integration testing. Like we are going to combine 2 to 3 codes and we are going to integrate them and we are going to perform a test on them, where we used to think of whether if you are going to combine 1 or 2 modules, whether they are going to give the accurate outputs or not. And we are also going to look of user acceptance testing. Like we are going to develop the project as per the user requirements, so that we need to think of whether the user requirements are being fulfilled in the project or not. So that we need to check with the user acceptance testings. And next we need to look of the automated testing. Okay. Next, we have some automated testing. Means automated testing in the sense where we used to put the code and we are going to perform some test cases. Okay. which automatically tests the codes and reduces the cycling up to 80%. And this automated testing, it looks the boost upping of the efficiency and speed upping the developments. And we have defect management, like where we used to track and we are going to resolve the bugs effectively, fixing the defects earlier, which has been significant. All these things we are going to look up.